And everything changed as the New York Knicks choked away an opportunity to defeat the Philadelphia 76ers and end this series in 5. And that's the most important thing we need to do right off the top. Whether you are a diehard Knicks fan, whether you are a casual Knicks fan, whether you are an independent basketball observer, sometimes the simplest and most important thing you need to do is to identify what happened. So let's identify it. The New York Knicks choked last night. Okay? That does not mean they're going to lose this series. That does not mean that they're going to lose in Philadelphia tomorrow night. It doesn't mean anything other than what happened last night was, and we got to call it for what it was, they choked it away. And if that hurts your feelings or that's uncomfortable, I'm going to present to you, along with Tiki Barber, the test of choking. Are you ready?
Yes. I don't know the choking test.
Here it is. Because we all thought, just for the record, we all thought that when Joel Embiid had a ball tipped away by Mitchell Robinson and OG dunked it to put him up by 5 with $1:39 to go, we all thought the game was over. We all thought it was done. When Jalen Brunson nailed a jumper with a little bit more than a minute to go to put him back up by 5, we all thought the game was over. When OG Anunoby took away that lazy pass from Maxey to Tobias and then got fouled, we thought it was over. But that's where it began. It began with OG Anunoby missing a free throw. Is that choking, by the way?
I mean, given the opportunities to actually put the game away, yes.
Okay.
It was choking.
When Tyrese Maxey, and the one thing you can't do, Mike Breen said it on the broadcast, and everybody at Madison Square Garden knew it. The one thing you can't do when you have a 6-point lead, you cannot commit a foul. You can't. And you also basically say, if you want to take it to the basket and have a quick 2, fine. But I cannot let you shoot a 3 and then befoul you. And Mitchell Robinson falls for the pump fake, lands right into Maxey, and boom, we have ourselves a 4-point play. Do you think that qualifies as articles of chokement?
Well, it qualifies as trying to be the hero as opposed to just doing your job. And that's what causes choking. When you try to do something that you shouldn't be doing, running out as fast as you can to run down a three-pointer by Tyrese Maxey, that's not what you're supposed to be doing in that moment. You could do it in the second quarter, the third quarter. So, yeah, it's choking. When you brain fart to the point where you go make a critical mistake with under a minute left, that is choking.
Now, here's the good news. You have a 2-point lead. And you know that the Philadelphia 76ers have to foul you. And you know that if you make your free throws, which, by the way, both teams missed all night long. It wasn't just the Knicks. Sixers did it too. Ask Tyrese Maxey, who missed 3 in a row. Ask Joel Embiid. You've got to make sure the ball is in the hands of a guy you want at the free throw line. So this is a little underrated in the articles of chokement. But make sure the ball's not in the hands of Josh Hart. Because Josh Hart, for all the good he's done in this series, his words, not mine, compared himself to Shaquille O'Neal at the line at the end of Game 4. That's what Josh Hart said. And you know what scares me about that? That's a guy who's thinking about things.
Yes.
That's a guy who knows, I don't want these free throws in the latter part of this game. It's like the old story goes about John Starks during the Reggie Miller game. Most of the most forgotten things about Reggie's 8 points in 8.9 seconds. John Starks missed 2 free throws. And the old story is that Mark Jackson said, I looked in his eyes and knew that guy didn't want to shoot free throws.
Yeah.
Josh Hart did not want to be at the line in that spot. And I'll give him a half a credit for this. At least he didn't miss both. But he missed a free throw, which kept the game alive. The decision-making to not keep the ball out of the hands of Josh Hart and then be Josh Hart missing a free throw, choking.
Yeah, but can't you also give credit to Nick Nurse for trapping Jalen Brunson the way that he did so that he had to give the ball up? He had to.
If you look at where Jalen Brunson was standing when that pass was made, the ball could have ended up back to Brunson and not to Josh Hart. Like, you've got to make sure in that situation where you know they're fouling.
Right.
You know that. You have to make sure the right guy's at the line.
Yeah, but that's the challenge of playing as many minutes as these guys did. And it's not to knock Tom Thibodeau. That's not what I'm talking about. But those guys got gassed. Mm-hmm. You could feel it.
Everybody was gassed. Yeah.
Of course you could. Yeah. But there's a reason that, I mean, Jalen Brunson sat down in this game for 2 minutes. And it was a good thing that he did. I mean, he got back up and started making some shots, but because he was getting, you could see, he didn't have any lift. But when you're gassed, I don't care what sport you're playing, you just get a little lazy. Like you're lazy in your body movements, right? So you're late. You don't get the shots off the same way. You can't defend the same way. But your mind also gets lazy.
Well, speaking of mind, because when you choke a game like this, it isn't all physical. It is mind. So speaking of mind, after Josh Hart at least makes one free throw, it's a 3-point game. Mm-hmm. Now, we'll get into a much further discussion on fouling up three because it's a complicated thing that doesn't always have one solution and one way to attack it. But in that moment, when you know damn well Tyrese Maxey is the man taking that shot, and you're down by 3, and you have a choice to not allow him to take that shot because you can send him to the line. And look, is there a risk in playing a free throw competition with the Philadelphia 76ers in the last 12 seconds of this game? There is. We just saw your guys miss free throws.
Right.
We saw OG miss a big free throw. We saw Josh Hart miss a big free throw. But you still prefer your chances at that free throw competition, especially with the Sixers not having a timeout.
And especially at home.
Especially. Now, let's be clear about the non-foul call. Tom Thibodeau was screaming, foul him. So the idea that Tom Thibodeau made a strategic decision like he did in Game 2, which I disagree with and was far worse, he made a strategic decision to not foul is not the case.
Right.
He was calling for the foul.
That's fake news.
When that screen is being set, Mitchell Robinson's got to scream, he's got to call for it, and he's got to foul.
Right.
And if you do that, look, the game extends. Who knows what happens? Maybe we do get some craziness like we saw in Game 2. But the Knicks were, maybe it's the word you want to use, lazy in not committing that foul earlier.
Well, I feel like the Knicks felt like he's not going to shoot from that far. And so let's let him get closer, and then we'll foul, right? Or then we'll close out, and then we'll do what Coach Thibodeau is saying. But again, I've been lauding this Knicks team for being better conditioned. They didn't show it last night. They didn't show it when it mattered most.
Well, and here's the best part. The choke isn't complete. Because even when Tyrese Maxey hits the logo 3 because nobody got the foul off, you still have time. And that leads to maybe chokement number 5. Do you want to call a timeout? And the reason why, most of the time, I love when coaches say, we're not going to call a timeout. We're not going to allow our opponent to set up their defense. Look at Denver. Look at Jamal Murray early in the series against the LA Lakers. I will tell you why in the moment it's different. It's different because they're gassed. And I don't mean the Sixers are gassed. I mean you're gassed. I mean Jalen Brunson has done everything to carry you to this moment. And so now you're telling him with about 8 or 9 seconds to go, I want you to sprint up court. We all know the ball's not leaving his hands because he's the one taking the last shot, rightfully so. And you know what? Make something happen. It would have benefited Jalen Brunson a lot to just give him a timeout, draw up a play. And while, you let Philadelphia draw up a play and you let Philadelphia kind of take a breather, I think the Knicks at that point needed the breather more. So the decision to not use a timeout you have, not draw up a play, leads to that final possession of regulation. I just named 6 things that are choking, and we haven't gotten to overtime yet. Because in overtime, you build a 5-point lead. In overtime, Josh Hart misses badly at the basket on a pass that shouldn't have been sent his way by Jalen Brunson. That shouldn't happen. Jalen Brunson also turns the ball over when Joel Embiid tips one away. Jalen Brunson also misses a free throw after Joel Embiid is called for the flagrant in which he pounds Jalen Brunson in the head. And then you got the cream of the crop, the ultimate choke. And that is Jalen Brunson made an absolutely brutal decision when he pump faked on the 3. And what? You're expecting Ihart on the perimeter? Ihart's job is to crash the boards. He thinks you're putting up a shot. And so, look, Jalen was brilliant. But in the moments that mattered, down the stretch, he was as guilty as anybody. And that's why last night may just be a footnote. You may win this series. We'll spend a lot of time talking about it, but we need to identify what happened without giving you some nice, pretty words to make you feel better.
Right.
They choked last night.
You're not going to feel better because of that choke job. We know that. We know that that's a fact. Now, Loogie's been saying something for a while, a long while. He's been saying this team is full of dogs, and he's right. These guys will go grind. Josh Hart is a dog. Right, you see him crashing the boards. Incidentally, last night, 0 offensive rebounds. For the first time in the series, they get out-rebounded offensively. That made a big difference. Josh Hart, but he's a dog. I'll give it to him. Deuce McBride, who barely was getting minutes at the beginning of the season, he's turned into a clutch player. He's the dude, man. He'll do it. Mitch, iHeart, all these guys, they're dogs and they're dudes. We all know about Jalen Brunson. And sometimes, you know what? They're going to go out and do damage. But you know what the reality is? They're not actually that good. They win because of all of the things that Louis says. They're dogs, they're dudes, they hustle their ass off, they play amazing defense, but good teams don't make those mistakes down the stretch. Good teams don't lose a 6-point lead with 28 seconds left. So, yes, they may, as you said, Evan, get through this series. They may go on to play Indiana, even though they choked as well against the Milwaukee Bucks and got destroyed, actually. It wasn't even a close game without Giannis and without Dame. So who knows what they're facing come the second round. But this Knicks team, they as much as we want to love them, or at least Knicks fans want to love them, when you really peel it all back behind the dudeness and the dogginess and the damage that they do at times, they're flawed. They are flawed.
But you know what I resent about that? Not resent, but I push back on. Despite the flaws that you think they have, they were
I know they have.
That they have. Fine. I'm not saying they're a perfect team. I'm not telling you they're going to an NBA title. But here's what I'll tell you: if they don't choke last night, they eliminate the Philadelphia 76ers in 5.
Did. But the point is they did. You can't escape that. It is now a series. We are going down to Philadelphia tomorrow.
We are
Sean
going.
wrote a note. Talk about the ultimate jinx. If Knicks fans want to blame anybody.
What did he do?
Anybody. Yeah. You know exactly. Well, you weren't checking your messages.
I was on DVR last night.
You weren't checking this. Let me pull it up so I have it exactly. Because, I mean, as I'm waiting for it to get this to come to fruition.
Yeah.
Sean says, we'll always this quote from Sean Morash, Knicks fans, remember this. We'll always remember the Philly trip we never had to make.
When did you write that message? After Deuce hit the shot?
After
OG's dunk?
9:28.
24 seconds left, I said
24 seconds. We'll always remember the Philly trip we never had to make.
Okay. And I also tweeted the Rangers and Knicks are both dancing into May.
Now, I will hand you, Tiki, that is a very jinxy kind of comment.
Such a jinx.
But you know who
what did I write back? Like 3 minutes later. I'm like, thanks, jinx. Or 6 minutes later, whatever the hell the game ended.
You know who else I think jinxed the New York Knicks last night?
Who's that?
Mike Breen and Walt Clyde Frazier.
Why? What did
For
they
the
do?
final 2 minutes, Jalen was built to play basketball. This is a party. First time since 99. You could hear in their words they were ready. And by the way, I don't blame them. Because watching this game, and you can pick your individual moment of when you knew or you thought this game was over. Maybe it was when Jalen nailed the jumper with a minute to go. Maybe it was when Deuce McBride hit that jumper at the foul line with 28 seconds to go. Maybe it was one of the OG steals and dunks or the OG steal, and then he's fouled. We all thought the Knicks were winning, and that's why, look, I'm not telling you they're a perfect team, but they needed to do all of those choky things I described to blow a game last night. And if they don't do that, if the ball isn't in Josh Hart's hands, and maybe it's Jalen's hands, and he makes his free throws, or maybe if Mitchell Robinson doesn't bite on the pump fake.
Now you're defending them?
I'm defending him in that they were in position to beat the Sixers in 5.
Yes.
Like, that's the reality. I'm being an IBO right now.
But they didn't.
And
Evan.
why is that? Because they're not good or because they choked?
The things that, by the way, this could easily be the other way. It could be 3-2 the other way.
Okay, but it isn't.
Because they miraculously had a Game 2 win.
Yeah.
Right? We saw this.
Okay.
Right? And so this team is I think they're better than the 76ers. But I can only say I think they're better than the 76ers because of moments like this. And the things that you want to laud, they actually kind of turn out to be Achilles' heels at times. Like they're very conditioned. You know what? Josh Hart and Brunson, probably not fully 48 minutes, but we've seen these guys. They can go 48 minutes if they have to, and they don't get gassed.
No, they got gassed last night.
But last night they got gassed.
Well, because you know what
it
it is?
Everything that we're talking about that they do so well, the dogginess and the dudeness and the damage that they do, eventually it comes back to haunt them. And so I think they're better, but they're only better because they're doggy and duty.
Right. Duty. Well, that's a different wording of it. All I know is, and listen, we can look back at what happened in Game 1 or how miraculous Game 2 was and who this evens the series out. F that. It is Game 5 at Madison Square Garden, and they had the Game 1, and they blew it.
At home.
That's the facts.
You can't do that.
That's the reality. And look, there's a chance this is going to be a fart in the wind. There's a chance that happens because history is written by the winners. And if you win, and I gave you the same warning after Game 2, and I'm going to say the exact same thing after a brutal loss that I said after a brutal win. After you guys won Game 2, I said, you know what? You better win the series. Because if you don't, no one's going to give a rat's ass about the miracle of Game 2.
Right.
Well, it's the same thing in reverse. As bad as this feels, and trust me, I know you may not believe me. I do have compassion for the diehard fan because I am a diehard fan. I've experienced painful losses. You can't sleep at night. You don't want to talk to your wife. You're miserable. I've been miserable. I genuinely feel for the diehard Knicks fan who was miserable last night. But here's the reality, and this is the pep talk to make you feel better. If you win this series, what happened last night doesn't mean a damn thing.
Now what?
It doesn't haunt you.
Facts.
It doesn't live with you.
Facts.
And me and you talking about chokes on a Wednesday disappears. So the Knicks have an opportunity to erase it. But in this moment, less than 24 hours later, we need to call out what happened last night. They choked, and they all did. They all did. Now, I'll exonerate Tom Thibodeau on the non-foul. You should foul because he was calling for it. But the one thing that bothered me was call a timeout after Maxey hits a three. Call a timeout.
Yeah. I mean, I can't kill him on that one. That's less to me than the other things that went on. Because you do want to catch the 76ers flat-footed, not expecting a driving Jalen Brunson who makes layups all day for a living. Like, you know he can go score. He got a bad shot off, obviously, but still, like, I can't kill him on that because I know that Jalen Brunson in that moment has the advantage, and he just didn't score.
We will come back and get to your calls in reaction to a night that you will never forget. 877-337-6666.